Who would like to start with check-in? Anybody in particular? Elizabeth, you want to start with check-in? Oh, sure. Oh, so sorry. Thank you.
I don't memorize. You're Monday.
I know. I just have to hurry. Tell me the list. But good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Peterson.
Is that how we're doing this again? Our microphones don't work?
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Peterson. I am one of the directors at Island Coast FEA. I'm doing well. Missing Mario. I have no time constraints, no elephants, and expectation is to make progress.
I am Kurt Fazone. I'm fine. I am also a director for Island Coast FEA, chief negotiator for the union. Missing's been noted, no time constraints or elephants, and I'll go with Elizabeth, make progress.
My name is Kevin Daly. I'm the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County. I'm fine. Missing's been noted, no time constraints, no elephants, and we'll go with continue to make progress, please.
Hi, I'm Jill Castellano. I am a PCT at Varsity Lakes Middle, and I'm also the vice president of TALC. I'm doing quite well. Missing for TALC has been noted. Time constraints, just our normal end time of 7. No elephants, and my expectation is to make progress.
Good evening. My name is Anna Witten. I am a 3rd grade teacher at Colonial Elementary as well as the TALC secretary. I am doing well. Missing for us has been noted. My time constraint is just 7 o'clock. No elephants, and my expectation is to hopefully make some agreements.
My name is Samantha Howard. I'm a full-time PCT at Harns Marsh Middle School. I'm fine. Missing has been noted. No time constraints, no elephants, and I would also like to make agreements.
Good afternoon. My name is Shay Pearson. I am a testing coordinator at Island Coast High School. I'm also the TALC treasurer. I'm doing fine. No time constraints. No elephants, and I would like to see us make agreements.
Good evening, my name is Amy Johnson. I am a teacher at Mariner Middle School. I have lovely 6th graders. I am doing well tonight. Missing has been noted. I have no time constraints, no elephants, and I agree with the make agreements.
Good evening, my name is LaShonda Hutchins Colon, and I am the math coach at Franklin Park Elementary. Today I am relieved because tomorrow is my last day with 1st graders after 10 weeks. So that's great. I have no time constraints. Missing is noted, no elephants, and I also want to make progress.
Hello, good evening. My name is Iris Grimaldi. I'm a full-time school social worker, currently assigned at Lehigh Senior High School. I'm doing well. Missing has been noted. I have no time constraints, no elephants, and my expectations are to make progress.
Hello, I'm Christina Sterritt, and I'm doing very well. I am a kindergarten through 5th grade full-time art teacher at Tortuga Preserve Elementary. I'm doing well. Mario is missing as noted. 7 o'clock time constraint, no elephants, expectations to make progress.
Good evening, my name is Bob Scapitullo. I teach mathematics at Three Oaks Middle School, and I'm also an area coordinator for TALC. I am doing fine. Missing has been noted. Time constraints, none. Elephants, none. And my expectations are to make agreements, please.
Good evening, I'm Louis Fisher, Director of Bands and Music Department, Chair at Gateway High School. Doing fine. Missing has been noted. No time constraints, no elephants, and expectations is to make progress.
Hi, I'm Tara Sherman. I'm the full-time school counselor at Raymond C. Page Elementary. I'm doing great. Missing is noted, no time constraints, no elephants, and I expect to make progress.
Hi, I'm Robert Dodig, Executive Director of Human Resources. I am well. Missing is Carl. Time constraint 7. Elephant, none. Expectations. Can I say make progress and agreements? But I'll say make agreements.
Hi, I'm Will Rothenberg. I'm doing well. I don't know why I got that reverberation. And missing's noted, no time constraints, no elephants, expectation, make agreements.
Good evening, I'm Heather Leonard. I'm doing well this evening. Missing have been noted. I don't have any time constraints out of our 7 o'clock. No elephants, and expectations, I'll go with make agreements as well.
Good afternoon, my name is Amy Desamore. I am fine. The missing's been noted. No time constraints, no elephants, and expectations are that we make agreements.
Good evening, I'm Kimberly Hutchins, Director of Payroll. I'm good. Missing noted, no time constraints, no elephants, and make progress.
Hi, I'm Christine Schroed. I'm doing fine. Missing have been noted. I don't have any time constraints except for 7, no elephants, and I'm gonna go with make agreements.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gould. I'm tired. Missing is Carl, no time constraints, no elephants, and to make some agreements.
Jessica Duncan, I am doing well. Missing are noted. I have no time constraints, no elephants, and expectations are to make agreements. Good afternoon, I'm Bonnie McFarland. I'm doing okay. Missing's noted, no time constraints beyond our end time of 7 o'clock. No elephants and expectations. I'm gonna say orange circles, which means the same thing as make agreements, but orange circles.
Hi, I'm Mike Gatewood. I'm doing great. Missing's noted, no time constraints, no elephants. Expectations, I'll say orange circles.
Hi, I'm Shannon Johnston, and I'm doing great. I do have a time constraint of 6:30 tonight. No elephants and expectations to make agreements.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ben Osman, the principal at Bayshore Elementary. I'm great. Missing is noted. No time constraints, no elephants, and expectations is make progress.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
My name is Susan. I'm doing well. Everybody has been no time constraints, no elephants, and I would love you guys to open up.
Amy French, I'm doing well. Missing is noted. No time constraints, no elephants, and expectations are orange circles.
All right, an orange marker that works. Hi, I'm Donna. I'm doing well this evening. I do have a time constraint. I have to 6 this evening, but Amy will take over when I have to leave. And I have no elephants, and my expectation is to help you do all those things. You do have, there were some agendas spread around the table. We've done check-in, of course. We have not, one thing that's not on here, the last meeting, we had minutes, but we got them at the last minute, so people who had had a chance did a few corrections to them, and I posted those up here, but we never officially approved those minutes because people wanted more time. So, the minutes were from 8:30, August 30th, and September 27th.
And October 11th.
And October 11th. So if you can quickly find those, have them available. And we did have some corrections, some grammatic corrections on August 30th. Did anybody correct?
Donna, I don't believe that we did corrections for the October 11th one, so I have some if.
Okay, let's see if we can approve the other two, and then we'll get to October 11th. So if we have August 3rd, that way we'll get them done. August 30th, anybody else have any more corrections on August 30th? You have no other corrections. We did have quite a few, as I said, grammatical corrections there, and some changes with some words. Does anybody else have anything else? Can we approve the August 30th minutes then? Can I see thumbs, please, for August 30th? All right, August 30th minutes are approved. The next ones were September 27th. And we had some grammatical corrections on that as well. Does anybody have anything additional for September 27th? All right, seeing nothing, no one's hand, hearing nothing. All those who approve August 27th minutes. September 27th, I'm sorry. All right, we're good for September 27th. Now October 11th, and we'll write corrections down first.
So my first edit is on page 4. The fourth bullet, that last line, it should read more jobs per day and they are not able. We're missing the word are. I also have page 5, first line. Oh, never mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sixth bullet, page 5, third line, the word mystery, I believe should be mysterious. The last bullet on page 5, I think should be stricken. It says, I understand, thank you, and I agree with you. And now page 7, third bullet, fourth, never mind. Last page, under housekeeping, the word minutes is misspelled. That's my last edit.
Okay, anybody else? Bob?
The word minutes is misspelled? You're welcome.
On page 6, under the story Esser, the third bullet in the fourth line has the word ask with an E. And then on page 7, under the story Esser, the first bullet, the second to last line, it says that's and considered. It should say that's considered. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? For October minutes?
That was page 7 under Esser, and we cited something else. First bullet.
That's the word.
First bullet.
Right.
So that's what she was missing.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, I don't see any hands. I don't hear any voices, so can we approve October 5th minutes? October 11th. Sorry.
We'll call those the birthday minutes.
The birthday minutes.
They were Jill's birthday.
All right. We're good with October. All right. I think that's it for minutes that we have right now. Later. All right, so beyond that, we have 5 bullets there. And I have talked with both Per and Will and Rob about the proposed language for Article 8, Article 12, and Article 14. And Rob, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's an interest in doing, after Monday's session, a joint communication, just.
Kevin?
If there's something to communicate.
Fair enough, that's why I said after Monday.
Okay. Good. Bob?
Yeah, I know that now that we're doing this without an audience, I know that a lot of members are asking about the minutes being put on the district website, and they're not there yet, and some of them have been asking about where they are, because they can't come here, and the only way for them to find out is by looking at the district website.
So that's one of the reasons trying to get the minutes approved so that we can get them up there. The videos are still available on YouTube if anyone wanted to go back and watch those. They're left up until we have approved minutes. We also had interviews yesterday for a secretary for my department, have made an offer, and will hopefully have someone to help get minutes out quicker moving forward. Yeah, I think kind of consistent with the joint communication, we want to make sure people know what we've discussed and where we're at without having to go back and watch 12 hours or whatever of video. Riveting video, Amy says.
Okay. All right, Bob? Thank you. Yep. So back to the proposed language for 8, 12, and 14. It has been suggested that because that was not sent out for enough time for everybody to review it, because I'm sure people aren't going to review that stuff over their Thanksgiving break. I think it was sent out the Friday of your Thanksgiving break. So they've asked that we let TALC Labor Management review the proposed language. You have it as well, and then they can bring it back to the group. Per?
I don't think they have it yet, but they will by the end of the night tonight.
Okay. All right. Well.
And we, like Donna said, we sent that out kind of over the Thanksgiving break. The Article 12 language is basically what we had discussed last year, kind of at the last minute. We know there was a need for some updates to that. Article 14 is brand new. We've talked about that some in labor management. I don't think there's anything real controversial or anything in there. It's just trying to capture what we do for professional development in writing. And then Article 8, just trying to update and align between TALC and SPALC, what our evaluation processes are, and capture the NEAT process, which is what we've used for several years in terms of notice, evidence, assistance, and time. Just to give you a little bit of the background on that.
So if I can see thumbs, if everybody's okay with just forwarding that proposed language to TALC Labor Management, and then we can approve it at a later time.
There was a question about if these were the articles that we were opening. Article 12 is open by joint agreement. 14 and 8 were opened by the district, and so we haven't opened any articles yet. So these are district proposals.
Okay, anything else? Will?
That's a really good point. I don't think we did snapshots because we were talking about the ESSER stuff, so at some point we probably should come back and make sure we have that recorded.
All right, is everybody okay with forwarding that to TALC Labor Management? To be brought back at a later date? I need some thumbs, please, thank you. All right, we are good on that. So, that leaves Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act, the ESSER Act, which we discussed in great length over several sessions. When we left last time, we ended with 2 caucuses and came for, I had them post all the options up here, and the last 2 things about the caucus report and what options were considered. You should have most of these options, but you probably don't have all of them because we came up with a number of them in that evening. So we do have those posted up here. So I'm going to ask you.
Don?
Yes, Rob.
I hate to interrupt you, but I'm wondering if there's an interest in a leadership caucus?
Yes. First, not as yet.
Okay.
So. On the time? 10 minutes? Got it.
Like an hour or 2.
First.
Which one are you
I'm gonna report out here. Who wants to start? Tell me how to start.
So we've had some robust discussion. The executive caucus was rather fruitful, and we realized that both teams weren't as far apart as maybe we originally thought. We've had a lot of conversation around how often teachers and non-classroom instructional staff have been performing extra duties since the start of the year, and how important it is that we come to some sort of agreement on how to move forward, and how important it is to also honor the service of all those that have been doing this work since the beginning of the year. So I think that wraps up our caucus report.
Yeah, we had a relatively brief caucus and just discussed what had come out of the executive or leadership caucus.
It was a very detailed report. So what do you want to do? You want to? Do we want to go back to the options, or are we going to go on to Article 10? What is the pleasure of 10?
I think we should revisit some of the straw designs.
Okay.
I'm going through my notes to see what all of these options mean. I believe the last straw design on the table was straw design E, which according to my notes was options 7, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17.
I don't see 13, 14, 15.
13 was...
Do you need that up here, or do you guys have them?
Option 13 was refer to TALC labor management, any issues. Option 14 was sunset at the end of ESSER. Option 15 was include elementary special teachers. Option 16, less than 2 hours paid at hourly rate. Option 17, the backpack was $385.
Oh, it says 375. It was 385?
Will, do you have a document with all of the options?
Okay, so our last straw design was E. We're getting the documents here. Now, Curry, you said 385, and I'm here for 17, it says 375. I wasn't here, so I don't know.
Yes, I am mistaken. The last offer, option 17 was 375. I apologize.
Okay. So, 16's right here. So, we have a strong design. Are you wanting to test that vote? Okay, want us to read them off? Okay.
Yeah.
7. That's no, okay, sorry. 7 is 1A this is from the original.
Yeah.
And then we can change to split evenly among the senior grade level. 9 is only classroom instructional as listed in Appendix C of TALC CPA. Only, can you hear now? No? Yeah? Okay. Only classroom instructional as listed in Appendix C of TALC CBA would be eligible for payment under this provision. Classroom instructional is listed in Appendix C.
What number?
This is 9. 10, draft MOU language in 1A. 13, option 7. Wow. Issues be referred to TALC labor management. 14, continue on ESSER funding. 15, special area teachers would be included in the classroom teacher's language. 16, include any coverage less than 2 hours would be paid at the hourly rate. And 17 is modified $300 a day to $375 a day. Correct. Yes.
I'm going to make it just a tad more complicated and make straw design F, which is straw design E without option 9. I believe we we would like to come to consensus that everyone who is listed in Appendix C is included in this proposal, and so straw design F, which is E without option 9, should accomplish that.
So I'm going to list the numbers out if you don't mind. So that's going to be 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Okay. I think I'm going to say the same thing as Amy, but I'll let her say it.
I don't think so. I was just going to ask, could you read number 14 again?
14 is continue with ESSER funding. Oh, I don't know what it says. It's C-O-N-T. Oh, contingent. Thank you. Contingent. I wasn't here that day, so I didn't know. Yeah.
17 is the 375.
Anna?
Anna?
Okay, she's got it.
Okay. Anna?
Go ahead, Kurt.
So the only thing that's really left is to talk about retroactivity. But I would like to propose that perhaps we bifurcate the issue and discuss retroactivity when we have elementary, secondary, and everything else settled, because that's a very important item to our team. You know, like I said, to honor the work that's been done since the beginning of the school year. But I just didn't want that to hold up something that we could accomplish tonight.
Well, thank you, because we have no objection to that either. We're not necessarily prepared relative to the retroactivity issue tonight either. So we'd appreciate bifurcating that also.
I would like to call to test straw design F, as in Frank.
We're testing straw design F, which are our options 7, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. We have a call to test. Okay, get that new orange marker out, Amanda.
Hasn't been used yet.
Okay. So I did hear that we weren't going to discuss retroactivity tonight.
Correct, but I think we need to talk about secondary.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so secondary.
Oh, Will's gonna put the proposed language up there.
No, it's not. Somebody presenting right now?
Will, I think, is trying to access. There's another one.
There's somebody else who's on here. There's the one in the back.
The other room.
Oh, you have it. All right.
I know. Let's talk about elementary.
I think we just wanted elementary. I thought we already did secondary.
Are you guys okay with me deleting that?
And I think there's an option that modified this. So we're gonna try to, or Amy, I'm sorry. I mean, we can try to find it, I don't know. It's probably in the minutes somewhere.
Option 5.
Thank you.
Okay. So secondary special centers change $50 to hourly plus 30. Standing coverage and $60 to hourly plus 40 for full coverage. I don't think that was it. This was it one? For miscellaneous and $60.75. I don't remember,
I think-
voting on these.
No, we didn't vote on it. That was your option, right? Kerr, yeah.
I think we had two options. I think option 1 was proposed by someone on our team that moved 50 to 60 and 60 to 75. But then option 5 had secondary and special centers $50 an hour plus 30 for daily, $60 an hour plus 40 for full coverage. But I believe, and maybe someone on my team can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we had some confusion around whether this 50 and 60 was additional coverage or not, and so we had a lot of options that were out there, and then we moved to elementary. So I'd have to go back through the minutes and my notes to see where what the intent of option 5 was.
That's my recollection as well, that was an option made under misunderstanding.
False pretenses.
Well, I don't think anybody did it intentionally.
I see Kevin picking up the mic, so I don't have anything. I was just wondering how we can kick off this conversation.
Right, how do you want to start? Do we want to go over the minutes and sign that first, or go to a little story?
I think maybe a little bit of story. I see Rachel has her hand up. I know that a situation presented itself to me in the past couple of days where I think we need to address like what the priority is or the first choice at secondary, whether it's to push in a teacher or to split the kids like they would in elementary, and possibly deal with the idea that they may not push teachers in during vacant planning. They would move the kids to other teachers and more like an elementary model at the secondary level. So I'm gonna let Rachel go.
I don't know what that means, but I would just think that we would kind of go by what we did with elementary school teachers as far as figuring out a pay scale based on what we decided with elementary, kind of as a starting point there to be equitable, if that makes sense. I'm not sure what you meant by like a vacant, like a long-term position.
So at a local school that has a secondary schedule, there was a teacher who was out, and instead of finding other teachers to sub in during the planning period, they took the kids that would have been in each teacher's period, that class, and divided them up among other people, like the elementary model. I mean, it seems counterintuitive. It's far easier to push a teacher in, but part of the problem was they said they didn't miss any planning, so they don't get any extra money. And so that's kind of gamey stuff, but it's going to happen, and it has happened. And so I don't know, we had this number around, additional to hourly rate, and I don't know if we take the 375 number and have that as like if you covered every period at a middle school and divide it by the amount of periods you have, and that's what it is per hour on top of, but the 375 is also divided amongst per student, so it's yeah, but I think some equitable treatment and some like basic math here to figure this out kind of is probably the best place to start. I know, and there's also the idea out there that some employees believe that there is an incentive to not spend the sub budget, and so, but this is a one-off, and it probably, if we put in the language that you need to push in people to cover planning periods as opposed to splitting kids, it solves that too.
Okay, and I want to make sure my kids are safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know where they are, and I'm not running around the campus looking for them too.
So I just wanted to propose, I hear what Kevin's saying, but I'm gonna ask if we can maybe just like put that on a parking lot, because I think there's certain pieces of this that we need to decide And I think we kind of started touching on that, but I'm afraid if we start ping-ponging down this road, we're not gonna go through what we need to decide. So I'm happy to throw out the beginning of the list, but we need to determine an amount. That's one of the pieces we need to determine so that we can match it up. And then we need to determine eligibility. And then I think we can put what Kevin was talking about, like I'll call it order of operations, I think is what we kind of threw out before, like, here's what we'll do, here's the preferred first choice, second choice, whatever. And then I'm happy to entertain any other, but I just think we need to kind of chunk this conversation so that we don't end up wandering all over the forest and not getting anywhere.
That's fine with me, but the order of operation had kind of come up in executive session, so when it came up here, I didn't want people to go, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And it might be crazy, actually, so yeah.
So, Will's quick math, essentially option 1 equalizes what we did for the elementary teachers, 60 and 75. $60 and $75, sorry.
And so that's, I mean, I know there are some middle schools that are running the 10-period day and some that are running the 8-period block. And so I think, we need to allow for some individualization, right? That's essentially taking that elementary number divided by periods and figuring how much, or hours, okay. Oh, okay, hours, all right, very good.
And I increased it by a similar amount, and it was, I think, 62, 50, and 75. But if you're looking at a 25% increase on what we first brought up, that's about a 25% increase.
You want to have a secondary option? Same language, Will? Same language is up there?
It was, $60 and $75.
Okay, you've got that coming up. Anna? I just have a clarifying question, because I know that we have had a lot of discussion around this, and I also know that there was some confusion around the intent of what is up there right now. So my clarifying question is, any teacher who goes into a classroom coverage is going to get their current hourly rate, and then this language is in addition to their hourly rate. That's my clarifying question. Okay, Rob?
Yeah, there's a carve out for special instructional. So any teacher but special instructional, right?
Did she not include special instructional on her thing here? Did you do that option?
At this point, I'm just taking one out of the group. Do you want me to add or? Well, I think it's fine. It's not.
Yeah, it's just classroom.
Yeah.
Okay, we have an option for secondary. Do you want to test that, or are we going to keep going with more options or more story?
I mean, I'm ready to test it, option 1.
Okay.
Just read it again, please.
Sure. It's, so we're going to increase the 50, this is for secondary and special centers. Increase, or $50 an hour will increase to $60 an hour for instruction during missed planning. $60 an hour increase to $75 an hour for instruction during missed planning for the semester. Okay? Amy?
Is there any way that we can just clarify that so that it says in addition to hourly? Because I know at the elementary school, it was $375 goes with the teacher not being there, the backpack.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really need this.
Let's ask Rob if he's okay with us.
All right.
Is
that okay?
Can we modify yours by saying in addition to normal hourly rate? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that Amy.
So is this, just wondering what, is this supposed to be it in its entirety? Because we didn't really address the question that Kevin was asking earlier about what happens if kids get split into different classrooms. This doesn't address that. So are we just taking it one at a time, or do we?
Yes.
This also doesn't memorialize who's in and who's out either, like the elementary one did. And I think we would probably want to do that as well to avoid confusion, because as they often say, this is what your union negotiated. So let's be as precise as we can.
So going back to what Bonnie said, do we want to do the cost? What was it? Cost, eligibility. In the order of operations, yeah.
Need me to clarify that?
One more question.
Yes.
Teachers on assignment have a planning period. So if they covered 2 classes because there was nobody else to cover, they volunteered, would they get paid for 1 planning period, or would they get additional money? Because middle school is definitely different than elementary school in that way. Sorry, and high school, secondary. Per hour? So if I was a teacher on assignment and my principal said, you're covering 2 classes, or I volunteer to cover 2 classes, I get $2 $60 extra, so $120 for that day?
Teachers on assignment get 1 planning period.
Right. They don't always have students in front of them, though.
But they have other duties.
Correct. Okay, so 1 hour?
Correct. 1 period.
1 planning period. I'm sorry, yes, 1 planning period. Thank you.
No, it's okay. So I think there's some confusion around the math. So just so we're all on the same page. So if someone makes, say, $30 an hour, and they are asked to cover an hour class, they're paid their $30 plus an additional $60 for that hour. So for that 1 hour, they would be getting $90 an hour. If it were an hour and a half, it would be prorated for the hour and a half. So it's $60 on top of the normal hourly rate.
So your hourly rate
is changing. Your hourly rate is changing for the time that you're in that classroom.
I just feel that's what I want to be clear on.
The second question that's floating around is what did I want to say? So this is an instructional or non-classroom instructional staff who is serving in place of a regularly assigned teacher. So it's not specifically teaching through planning. It's when they're asked to serve in the place of another employee who is missing for one reason or another. Is that correct?
For one period, for one time.
Yeah. I mean, the genesis of this is to cover for planning, or using your planning to cover, correct? But it's classroom coverage, so I'm not quite certain. Amy may understand your question better than me. I'm not quite understanding.
Maybe let me rephrase. So when we were speaking about let's go back to the elementary and some of the folks that were in the non-classroom, group in Appendix C. If someone in that group was relieved from their daily duties to go cover something else, they're eligible. So is that what we're talking about here?
Yes. Yes. Hold on.
Okay, could you repeat what you said one more time? I just want to make sure I understood.
All right, so let me get an example. All right, so let's just pick math coach. So at the elementary level, if the math coach is taken from their regularly assigned duties and given students, we now have a mechanism to compensate for that. Is this only for teachers who are missing their planning? Or if you had a math coach at the high school level who is not math coaching and they are covering a class, for a period or the whole day, then the intent is that they're getting the extra compensation because they're doing extra work, correct?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So, yes, I believe that was the intent, but everything else, it really was, the classroom coverage was about the teaching through planning, because that's the time or the extra effort that the teacher is giving up. So, but yes.
I'm going to throw a curveball in this that seems easily fixable. Royal Palm Exceptional School has an elementary side and a secondary side. So would the assumption be that the elementary rule applies to elementary and the secondary rule applies to secondary? And then also sometimes we have an idea that, well, you had 5 kids absent today, but I only gave you 2. So, you really didn't have any more kids. But I'm thinking, and I'm not sure, I think Buckingham, even though it's a pre-K to 22, I think their days might be structured more like elementary. And then Success is only secondary, and then Lamp, I think, is only secondary, right? So as long as we can handle the Royal Palm outlier and possibly the Lamp outlier with the idea that the elementary side is under the elementary rule and the secondary side is under the secondary rule.
The language here says special centers, secondary and special centers, so.
I understand that, but when you look at Royal Palm and you look at the elementary side, they're far more likely to do what they do in elementary school, which is I'm out, you get 3 of my kids, Kerr gets 2 of my kids. At the secondary level, they're far more likely to do what they do in a traditional secondary school, which is we need someone, because the secondary group has specific period planning because No Child Left Behind did away with the self-contained idea at that level. And so,
Yeah, I hear you. I think we could take special centers out of that title and then treat them like you described, because we have the same issue with Veterans Park and Sanibel School having K through 8.
So what language? We're in just secondary, okay. Perfect. Okay. So we do have an option up. Will you tell some more story or? Yeah. Tina?
I just need to clarify, up on the board it says for daily coverage, but on the option it says for planning. Can I get some help with that, please?
So the option that we copied from there, well, it says Miss Planning, and up here it says daily coverage. So how do you want us to address that discrepancy between option one over here and that language?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a discrepancy between some of that language and the option. Will's trying to edit it as we go along here.
Bonnie's got her hand up and then Jill.
I think the term daily coverage is trying to differentiate between a single event.
Right, and all semester.
Right.
Yeah.
Bonnie, the daily coverage is trying to differentiate between a single event, like I'm sick today and Jill's covering my class, versus I'm out on maternity leave for the semester and Jill's covering my class. So I maybe we need a different word, but that is what I think we were using the term daily coverage to mean single event, single occurrence, to differentiate from the $75 into the full semester. So maybe we need different language, but I think we still need that differentiation because we have two different dollars.
Do you want to propose a different language? Wordsmith it up?
Pass right now. Yeah, I'm gonna pass.
All right, Jill?
Well, I wanted to say that I think that, I know Will just typed it, but I think classroom coverage is better language for this. And I say that because you have teachers there. So I'm going to talk about our teachers who don't have full-time classroom responsibilities, or they have part-time classroom responsibilities. Sometimes on paper, in many cases, depending on the department or the team that teacher is associated with, they have a planning. So I'll use myself as a PCT, for example. I have first period planning. But oftentimes, because teachers, and then the last two blocks of the day would be considered leadership time. Oftentimes, I get asked to cover not during what's on my planning on paper. I get asked to cover quite often in those last blocks of the day. So when we say classroom coverage, it recognizes that some people, their time during the day has to be fluid, because there are days that I say to myself, well, I'll plan during the last block of the day, because the first block of the day I'm meeting with a teacher and I'm doing instructional coaching, or I'm modeling and I'm doing this in a classroom, but I still need my teacher time every day to grade papers or do lessons or do what I need to do in my role as a teacher. And so my schedule, even though on paper it says I have first period planning, my day has to be fluid based on the needs of the teachers that I work with. And I think that would be the same for any instructional coach. So for example, if you have a reading coach, if the reading team has third period planning, that would be essentially like their planning period, but they could be asked to cover a different time during the day. So when we say planning, for people whose days and their time has to be technically fluid, then someone says to them, well, on paper it lists your planning at this time, even though that person is providing instructional coverage during a different part of their day. So I just bring that up because I think classroom coverage does a better job of describing the action that the teacher is doing. You're going into a room and you're taking the period to cover another teacher who is not there or who has to leave early, whatever the situation is, and whatever work you possibly needed to do during that time now has to be done in a different time. I think classroom coverage is a better term.
Thank you, Jill. Any comments about it? Need to change any language?
Well, I think you could kind of combine it. You could say instruction during missed planning and additional classroom coverage or something like that. I mean, to cover both bases.
What do you think about that, Kurt?
I think we can get behind that, because that alleviates the concern that if it wasn't entirely during an employee's planning time, like Jill said, that wouldn't just be that automatic, denial. I think we could preempt a lot of issues by clarifying that title. And that was the language that we were working on for the elementary side as well. I mean, when we put our options up and agreed to that straw design, we were looking at temporary reassignment and classroom coverage.
Okay. Anna?
I also just wanted to add that the change in what it says right now with section 1, the instruction during misplanning and classroom coverage, really is like a big win for me, because the current contract, even though elementary teachers are within Article 10.4, Article 10.4 is called instruction during misplanning, doesn't always mean elementary teachers fall into that. So I think that with the article as a whole, it really encompasses that piece of the elementary teachers as well.
Sharing that out. Okay. So we modified this option. I'm going to read it to you, make sure it's okay for you. But we have a $50 an hour increase to $60 an hour for instruction during misplanning and classroom coverage. $60 an hour increase to $75 an hour for instruction during misplanning and classroom coverage for the semester, in addition to the normal hourly rate.
I think the option is essentially what's up on the screen.
Okay.
So you don't have to read it.
Okay.
I mean, you know, and I asked to test that one, but
We will test what's on the screen.
I would,
Is that what you'd rather?
I would ask to test what's on the screen, sure.
So it's going to be option 2 on the screen? Or can we? What do you think? Do you want us to write option 2, what's on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll write that, yeah.
That's fine.
What's on the screen?
Well, or just put the proposed language for 10.041.
Okay, there you go. Proposed language for 10. Okay. Kirk?
Two things. One, the way that number 1 is written, it alleviates the concern that everyone in Appendix C will be included except for the special instructional who are immune to classroom coverage, so that really works. Secondly, in the existing 10.044, there is language around kind of the procedure, that volunteers are sought first, and there's a rotating schedule. I really think we need to keep that piece of the article in here, so I don't know if we want to include it in this or include it at the end. I would hate to lose that piece.
Can I respond? This amends 1B, so 1A would stay.
I'm talking about the original 10.044, it would be 10.044A.
Correct, yeah.
So that's...
And I think this is supposed to be 10.044B, actually. It has a 1 up there, but one's extended work year. Will said the numbering was from an MOU, that's why.
And A was the elementary side. So then maybe what I'll do is just put up a second option that third, whatever number we're on, that we include the voluntary assignment language from the existing article.
Okay.
Okay. We're not to get cut up here.
And Rob, I know you called to test. I am curious if you would mind if we made a straw design with your option and option 3.
That's fine.
So option 2, which is up there on the board, and option 3. Okay? So we have a call to test. Option 2, which is up here.
10.04 parentheses 4 and then parentheses A, voluntary assignment.
And then option 3, to include the voluntary coverage language from existing Article 10.04 4A. So we have a call to test that. I can see thumbs. Yes, I'm sorry, Mike has a question first.
Yes.
So you put that an option?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4. So number 14, contingent, and that's our funding. Okay, thank you. Or do you want to amend your straw design, please?
Include options 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. So we have an amended call to test for options 2, 3, and 4. If I could see your thumbs, please.
Hold on a second, I think Rachel may have a question.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the language he was preserving, yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
Can you call your colleagues and have them do that as well?
All right. Dr. Bessemore? Stay here. Yeah. Okay, not a problem. Good there, okay. All right, get the orange marker out. Nicely done, folks. Whew. Will's gonna take this down? Okay. Does that complete secondary?
Yeah, special centers, yeah, that completes secondary.
So now we do special centers?
And I think if we just notate those places, that special centers, if it's an elementary room, the elementary rule applies. If it's a secondary room, the secondary rule applies. That may be the easiest way to fix that.
Okay. Amy?
My apologies, I don't mean to back us up, I just was asking for a point of clarification. So what are the things that we included in this option that we just said we were gonna include the language from 10.044A? It does say teachers may only receive additional compensation equal to 1 period per day, which I think is in opposition to what we have talked about for the other scenario.
Does it refer to the MOU? No.
Not here what I'm looking at, no.
That's a very good catch and an oversight on my part. I only wanted to lift the part that Rachel mentioned, the rotating basis, the list of volunteers.
Okay, so we do need to then modify. So we're going to
No, just put another option up there.
Okay. Put another option. Kerr?
Yes.
Rob proposed we can either just note it in the minutes, or we can put another option up there.
I'm okay with it being notated in the minutes, but I think it should be bold, highlighted, underlined, boxed, and starred.
Okay? So tell us what you want us to write there then.
I think he wants to delete the last sentence.
Delete the last sentence, yes.
10.044A.
Delete last sentence in 10.04, parentheses 4, parentheses A.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep, thank you for pointing that out. Okay. So now we have special centers. Kevin, were you proposing an option or is it a story? What do we want to do for this part?
I think it's a story stepping off point. Please, everybody over there and everybody over here, think if that works. I mean, it seems like a simple solution, and sometimes that seems right, but it doesn't work out. I mean, like I said, I know at Royal Palm, they would do elementary like elementary and middle like middle and high like high. I don't know what they would do at Lamb. I don't know what they would do at Bucking. I'm assuming Lamb secondary, so they do the secondary model. So maybe Jessica can shed some light on that.
Jessica?
Is it possible to just have a clause based on whatever you're doing? Because like you said, Royal Palm uses two. So they would use for elementary, hourly, for secondary periods. Buckingham would probably use hourly for all of theirs, regardless if it's secondary. So could there be a more generic clause that says based on your scheduling, based on center school scheduling, use the elementary or secondary payment?
I think that works perfectly, and it captures the individuality of the special centers.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just also clump in there K-8s as well with the same clause?
Any other comments, story, what do we want to do at this point?
If that's an option, I'd like to call the test, please.
You would like to call that an option, okay? We're going to call the test.
Oh, wait, oh yeah, contingent on ESSER funds, the sun rising tomorrow,
Okay.
and no hurricane named Kerr or something, whatever you want to put in there.
Bob asked that we would promote to you as well.
Talk among yourselves.
Okay, so what we have here is option one, based on, what's that? Oh, and, so who, Kevin, she wants to change this or to and or, are you okay with that? Okay. Okay?
Can you read it out loud?
I sure can. It says, based on special center and K-8 scheduling, use elementary and or secondary payment contingent on ESSER funds. Do we need to change any language on here? By again? Sure. Based on special center and K-8 scheduling, use elementary and or secondary payments contingent on ESSER funds. Go ahead. Okay. It will be more legally wordsmith.
Elementary and or secondary payment as applicable.
Okay. As are you okay if we say as applicable? Okay. Anna?
I just wanted to note that in the elementary agreement, part of our option was option 13. And option 13 would be that if there was any issues with like the management of this, well, I did refer to splits, but the management of this, that it would go back to labor management. So thinking of like, this is kind of still the secondary part of it, but in either situation, whether it's elementary, secondary, special centers, or K-8, that I want it noted in the minutes that any of these issues with implementation of that would then be kicked back to labor management.
Okay. So you want to have that as a second option? Or you just want to note it?
Not really, because if I add it to this, it really also should have been added to the secondary thing too. So I just would like it noted in the minutes that's noted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we work.
Let's catch it.
So I'm gonna put in your noted minutes that any issues go to labor management. Yeah. Okay, all right, so we had an option to test this. We're ready to test it. I'm gonna read it one more time. Based on special center and K-8 scheduling, use elementary and/or secondary payment as applicable, contingent on ESSER funds. That is the option that we are testing right now for special centers and K-8 centers. Okay? All right. One spot on that one. Nicely done. Okay, does that finish all classes covered? Now, Anna?
So I really wish Carl was here because he, we were kind of on the same page with tabling this, but the current option 6 talks about the group of teachers who are doing lesson planning and grading for a classroom, but not necessarily the physical instruction in the room. And I know that there is many teachers that are, whether it's doing the lesson planning and the grading for classroom coverage and a paras covering. I know we have several situations like that at my school. I know many of us here at the table, we've discussed about how we're all in that same position or it's happening at our school. So if we have a separate section for this ESSER funding to really just kind of put in there, it's the current option 6 that says if you're doing the prep, lesson planning, or grading for a teacher, but not necessarily the physical coverage, that you would then be paid an hour per day, an extra hour for that at that hourly rate.
Will, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question on that, and this is coming like totally from a place of ignorance because I don't know how often that was happening like pre-COVID and how often that's happening now, like during COVID. I do know in the past that there were some instances where like a reading coach would prepare kind of a supplemental lesson for an entire grade level, or if you had someone that was out on a maternity leave, sometimes people would help, like you're saying, support for sub coverage. And so I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about that, and if it's primarily an elementary thing or if it's happening at all levels. Like, what does it look like in each of those scenarios, just to kind of have that for the story and better understand it myself.
And Anna,
I think she's gonna say what I was.
okay, so this is Anna, and then Jessica over here.
Yeah, so I can share, you know, the situation that I was in last year. But as a grade level chair, you know, there would be, if a teacher was out and it was an emergency, they didn't have plans making copies for the day, that's not what I'm talking about. There was a teacher, from my own experience, a teacher at my school site last year from April, on my team, from April, he did not return to our campus until September. And so we did have a para that was covering the room. And, you know, we needed instruction to move forward. Like, those kids needed more than just, here's the copies, follow this. And so from April until the end of the school year, you know, I made sure that classroom, I did all of the lesson plans for it. I did all the report cards. I did all the grading, all the cumes at the end of the year. I had everything set up to where, you know, written out that I could hand to the para, and some days it was a sub. This is the instruction, like, here's the things that I can ensure that these kids are at least getting this for that learning. And so that is something that happened as a result of the situation that we're in right now. And I see it happening again this year at our school site. I know speaking with many people, and I can have, them share, but, maybe there's not a teacher in a position. Maybe they're missing a band teacher, and so they're preparing band lesson plans, band instruction for someone to deliver that content, more so than a reading coach would be, here's a great reading plan for you to do a great lesson. It's beyond that actual classroom instruction, those report cards, the grading, all of that stuff that still needs to go on for our students as a result of COVID. I don't know if anyone else wants to capture what you were going to say.
Jessica was next. Jessica?
And I guess that goes to part of my question about, is this novel lesson planning? So if you, and it might depend on the teacher or the school or the subject area. So if I'm with a teacher and we're following the progression plan and we're both teaching algebra and we're following the same plan, they could technically use my plan. So I wouldn't pay somebody necessarily for a copy, but then there's instances like you're talking about where it's novel planning, where it's a different subject area or something more involved. And I'm just wondering like how you might differentiate that or not.
Jill?
And I just wanted to bring up, I think that even before COVID, sometimes this would happen. You would have teachers on emergency, take FMLA, sometimes even situations with the maternity leave. So we're just talking about like you're doing their job responsibilities. I understand what you mean about like if we're teaching the same subject and now I'm making copies and I'm doing that stuff. But it goes beyond, because in some cases it's easier for another teacher to just do the grades or just do some of those things than it is if you don't have a consistent, well-trained long-term sub, which at this point, that's not something that we have.
Okay, Jessica?
And I guess that might go to where there's how we look at different things differently, where if you are working with a teacher and you can copy your plans, which is not always the case, I understand, but that might be one rate that you would get because you're still doing maybe the grading, but if you do the grading and novel lesson plan, that's a whole nother layer, so I just wouldn't look at those two instances with the same lens.
I think what we're really looking at is when you have that TBA position that just can't be filled. I mean, if I want to look at my school, we had a math teacher that left January last year. We had a para in there, but the para doesn't know how to teach math. So I had to literally give them all my plans. But the para didn't do the grading, the para didn't do the phone calls home, the para didn't do the things that a teacher should be doing. So not only was I teaching my classes, I was also teaching basically those classes, because there were times when the para couldn't even deliver the instructions. We would have to literally switch classes. And while my kids were working on homework, those kids I would be giving instruction to. So I think it's a lot. I mean, handing lesson plans isn't really the only thing we're looking at. And I think that we're looking at it from a bigger picture of what we're offering, what we're able to do where these kids have no instructional loss, especially in some of our core classes. I mean, at my school, we've had 2 paras teaching math since the day the mask mandate went in.
Thank you. Jessica?
And just one more time to that point, that when you provide the lessons, yes, there is definitely more work there is definitely work that goes into that. So I don't want to negate that work and grading or assistance that you provide. But if you were to, go back to Anna's point, help the band teacher, who might be the sole teacher there, you would be creating completely novel and new lessons for that area because they couldn't be copied because your progression plan as a second grade teacher would be completely different. So just differentiating between that work, because I think there could be significantly different levels of work based on what you're asked to cover. I'm not sure if that's...
Sounds
Sounds like an option. Jessica, do you want to make an option out of it? Okay. Oh, here.
Well, I just grabbed my
Okay. All right. Bob?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something that Will brought to my attention, and something I was going to be talking about. And, we've been talking about this for like 4 weeks, and I think that we just touched the surface about the factors that are, the underlying factors that are occurring right now, and not just because of COVID. And I know that the future negotiations, the post-ESSER funding, I think we're going to bring, I just want this for the minutes, that we're going to be bringing up things that are going to come up that are not related to COVID, such as the shortage of teachers, not being able to retain teachers, not being able to find substitute teachers, guest teachers. So there's a lot of things out there that we know that we're going to be bringing up during, future bargaining sessions, but I just wanted to make sure that we all realize that what we're discussing over the last 4 or 5 weeks is not just COVID. And I just didn't want us to kind of, keep that under the rug and go forward and just blame it on COVID, because there's a lot of underlying factors that I know are going to come up over the next several weeks.
Yeah, although I don't disagree, I think it's very hard to sit here and say that the increase in prices of food and other goods and things like that are not related to COVID. So, and the people have left professions at a record rate for one reason or another. That mindset has been created, I think, because of the pandemic. I don't know, but I think I can just tell you, coming back here after 28 months of being away, everything in this district has been impacted by COVID. So I hear you, Bob, but it's a nationwide problem. People have just dropped out of the business of working. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're paying for goods and services, but there are just people that are leaving the job market. And it's in every cross-section of America right now, which is just strange. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think the good thing is the partnership, hopefully, that we have to try to solve some of these problems in what I would consider a creative way, because we don't have the ability to hire hundreds of people. We just don't. So we have to be creative, and most importantly, and I know you all know this, we have to value the people that are here, and that's important. Whether it's COVID or not, really doesn't matter, right? And I think that's your point. So I'm with you. I don't know what else we want to bargain tonight, but I will say this about the previous issue that we were talking about. It's very amorphous. How do we define what you're talking about? I hear you. So if someone copies someone's lesson plans, why should that person be remunerated for that? Or the person is preparing lesson plans that are novel. I think that's the word you used. I hear that. But who is overseeing that? How do we know that? I mean, there's a lot of questions. People should be compensated for work they're doing. There's no doubt about that. But I think that this whole concept needs to be developed, I guess, is my suggestion.
Okay.
So what about just taking lesson plans out of it and just compensating somebody for helping a sub
or a para with grades and attendance, because that is tedious and overbearing for a teacher. And lesson plans are in the curriculum maps and instructional guides, and that would take out the confusion of whether or not it's novel or not novel. And if it is not something that is part of your curriculum that you have, you can get help from somebody in the district because we've got lots of experts. So if you had those two factors, you're helping with attendance and grades, that's pretty concrete.
Anna?
I just wanted to talk to Rob's point where, mentioning like who would oversee and how, kind of the manageability piece about how do we manage, who is doing this. But my principal knew I was doing it. And so I think that if, that's who knew I was doing it. And so I just wanted to say that. But I do agree with what Rachel also said too, whether it's the lesson planning, and yes, there is instructional guides, but in kindergarten, it was not handing instructional guides to a teacher. That was not what all happens in a kindergarten classroom from day to day. That was just a piece of it. And so, and Will, how many pages of those lesson plans did I provide to you and Angela to get you through the day in kindergarten? One day in kindergarten, I do believe it was a double-digit number, step by step, and me and Mrs. Seeley, as we went through them, we said, oh, what happened when we left the cafeteria? Because now we're magically back in the classroom. And so it was, I'll let Will share his day in kindergarten and how intensive those lesson plans really were.
So, first of all, I feel attacked because there were detailed lesson plans, and that is not how the day unfolded, or at least not how the second half of the day went. The first half seemed to go all right. I think someone said that there's maybe a picture of me on some promotional materials teaching kids shapes. I'm not really sure how that happened. But I'm glad that it was teaching shapes rather than when we were doing iReady at the end of the day, because I didn't have the ability to manage all the login and rotation of centers and everything else that was going on all at once. But yeah, I think kind of to that point too, some of the lesson plan stuff, it's helpful if you have someone who maybe knows what they're doing and is able to carry out those lesson plans. I think the bigger thing in my mind is I hope that you guys didn't stay after, extra and put like lots of detail in there just for us. I would imagine that that's kind of what you guys are doing, planning on a regular basis, and then you're able to execute those plans a little bit better. But again, I think the calling home, the grading, that kind of stuff, I would imagine, there's no way around that. You're staying after for that. Even if you've got well-worn lesson plans and it's tried and true and you know how to make the adjustments or the modifications based on what accommodations certain students need or based on where you're at relative to the pacing guide. I think the other part of it is the piece that in my mind would have the biggest impact on your daily routine and probably cause the most, additional work. And again, the lesson plans were not the problem in that case. I think very clearly identified that my classroom management skills don't translate from ESE life skills at the secondary level to the elementary kindergarten level.
Jill?
And I was just going to say, when it comes to doing this, like Anna said, you're usually asked or voluntold or tasked with this from your principal. Your principal comes to a member of the team, whether it's the department chair or the grade level chair, whoever it is, or if it's a PCT and or the reading coach and they say to them, hey, like, we need you to write the lesson plans, get the lesson plans into that classroom, put grades in, and do those responsibilities. That does usually come from the principal. So when that comes from the principal and what we're asking for is so much time per day, that's just a supplemental contract until maybe a teacher is hired or until that person comes back from whatever they're off of, why they're not at work. So whether it's like maternity leave or an emergency like FMLA situation, but usually that does come from the principal. They meet with you and ask you to just take on these responsibilities for whatever the length of time would be.
Okay, I kind of want to get back to what are we working on right now. So Anna brought up, we have all of our options and our agreements for elementary, secondary, and special centers. And then Anna said, oh, but what about this? Anna, does this apply to all three of those things? Okay. So what did you just want to add this to the story? What did you want to do with this?
I do.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't, it was using the microphone. We are just about at the end of the evening this evening. So, you know, we do meet again on Monday, and so this will, I'm sure, take up everybody's waking moment from now until then. And so, you know, like many things, it's up there, it's a thought. So let's use the next 3 or 4 days to shoot holes in it and figure it out and come back on Monday and see if we can start with this and then maybe do the order of operations where we express the idea that, you know, secondary does this first and never does that. But yeah, I think this is a marinade issue until Monday.
Okay. Are you guys okay with that over here? Okay. Real quickly, just showing fingers, justify how close we get to our expectations of making progress and making agreements. 5 would be great. Doesn't really well too. Lots of 5s, 4s. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you for helping us.